You're listening to the Cat Breeder Sensei Says podcast, the show that supports the reputable breeding of pedigree cats. I'm your show host, April Catito, and in this episode, we're going to be talking about transporting your kittens. The internet makes it easy to attract people from all over the world, basically, to look at your kittens, be interested in them, and even buy one from you. Usually the biggest obstacle to get over is transporting your kittens or delivery. How is the kitten going to get to the new home if the person is not local? We'll discuss all of the options that you have right after this short message.
Do you want to learn how to become a successful breeder of pedigree cats? Now you can. For the first time ever, enroll in an online training course that takes you step by step through everything you need to know to get on the right track. Visit catbreedersensei.com to sign up today and use code podcast21 to get $25 off.
Okay, we're back, and we're going to be talking about the different options that you have for transporting your kittens. So that is when the kitten is ready to go home, it's ready to travel, whether that be when it's 12 weeks old or 14 weeks old or 16 weeks old, whatever your policy is in your cattery. When the kitten is ready to travel, you definitely have multiple options on how to get the kitten into its new home. And it depends on if the buyer that you're working with is local, within your country, or outside of your country. So we'll start with the easiest option, and then we'll kind of graduate to some international travel. So things that are a little more complicated and require a bit more detail to get the kitten there safely. So the first option, of course, is going to be that the buyer picks the kitten up at your cattery. So this would be someone who is local or is close enough to drive to your cattery and pick the kitten up. And sometimes the buyers are just excited about flying to your town and getting an Uber or getting picked up from the airport and visiting or touring your cattery where their kitten has been raised. So people are definitely willing to do that. Just pick the kitten up at your cattery, and will come from many different places to do that. So never rule that option out, even if they're not local. Some breeders opt to meet their buyers halfway. So if you're in South Florida and your buyer is in New York, let's say, that might be a long travel to meet halfway. It'd probably be, over 10 hours, and maybe not something that you want to do. So you can put a maximum amount of travel time if you're willing to meet your buyer halfway in driving to deliver the kitten. And breeders like to do that so they get to meet face to face the people that are going to be taking the kitten forever. You can also have someone else meet the kitten halfway, so it doesn't always have to be you that does the delivery. There's lots of options for travel nannies that will pick the kitten up at a designated location and drive them to wherever you want. You can meet the buyer at your airport. So this would be obviously someone who doesn't live locally and flies in to your closest airport, and you just get the kitten ready and meet them at the airport. Now, I do this option a lot, and I will just meet them like curbside on departing flights. So I don't have to go in and go through the airport and try to find them and stuff. So we just have a meeting place at the airport, a specific airline in the departing curbside, and that's where I meet them. So if they're coming to your airport, they can be coming from anywhere. I'm in Florida, so I had someone come all the way from Alaska to pick up a kitten, and the process for them to meet at my airport was quite simple. So easy solution to meet your kitten buyers at your airport if they're coming from out of town. Now, if the kitten buyers are within a certain distance, they may opt to do a travel nanny drive. And that is where you or someone that you have designated, I actually use a travel nanny, will pick the kitten up from your cattery, and it will travel in usually a travel tent that is furnished with a litter box, some toys, maybe a blanket that they were raised with. It just makes the travel comfortable for them. Now, kittens don't always love to ride in a car or travel in an airplane, so we try to accommodate them the best way that we can until they reach their new home and they can decompress and, start to relax there. So, a travel nanny can actually take care of the kitten on its road trip and make sure it has everything that it needs and is able to use the potty if it has to. There probably should be, a limit on the amount of miles that a travel nanny drive will go. I have a couple of travel nannies that I use to deliver my kittens, and one of them, the max is 500 miles. So that nanny wants to pick the kitten up, deliver it, and be back home all in one day, even if it is a super long day. So we put a cap on ours at 500 miles for a travel nanny drive. Now, a drive is good for deliveries that are maybe not so far that you need to fly, but not close enough that they want to come and pick the kitten up. So, maybe the buyer does not want to do that drive, so we get a travel nanny to do it. And I'm going to say that 95% of my buyers that are not local opt for a travel nanny drive if it's within 500 miles. There's, maybe a few stragglers that will actually drive themselves and to come get their kitten. But if they're within that 500-mile maximum, then we usually opt for the travel nanny drive. Then, to kick that up a notch, we go travel nanny fly, and that is where we're flying outside of our 500-mile radius. It's too far to drive, maybe across country. If I'm in Florida, I have a lot of kittens that go to California and the West Coast, Arizona, and such. And in that case, we use our flight travel nanny. So I get the kitten ready and I drop the kitten off at the airport. The travel nanny meets me there, and it is then accompanied in cabin in the airplane until it reaches the buyer's destination at their airport. And sometimes these are very long flights, so especially if it's going across the entire country. But the travel nanny will take care of the kitten and make sure that it's nice and happy and accommodate their needs during the travel as well. I always use the same travel nanny for flights. That way we have an understanding of how we like to work and communication wise and things like that. But in the show notes, I'm going to leave you some resources of travel nannies for flights that you can contact if you need travel nanny service in the United States of America. Now we have international travel, and there's two different options for that. One, of course, would be a travel nanny, and that would be someone who accompanies the kitten in cabin from the time it leaves until the time it arrives at the new airport. And sometimes the international travel nannies will drive to the door. They have a system set up where they can actually get off the airplane and get an Uber or a rental car and deliver the kitten to your door. Now, of course, you have to pay for this service, and it can get a little pricey depending on where it's coming from and where it's going to. And then you have cargo, so international travel with cargo. Probably my least favorite method of travel for a kitten, because they're traveling with freight, right? They're traveling in cargo. It's less expensive, but I've never had any issues with any kittens that have traveled cargo, so I'm not opposed to it. I would just, if the option is available, I would rather have a person accompanying my kitten during the flight until, I make sure that it gets here. That's not always available. I mean, it's just, can't always find someone that's willing to do that or is available to do that. And especially during COVID, it was really hard to get a kitten delivered from Europe to the United States of America. It was almost unheard of. And I think things are starting to, get a little better now, and they're less tight. The restrictions are. So I think more people are able to use the international cargo to get their kittens here. And I'm speaking of Europe because I know with my breed, the Maine Coon, a lot of kittens are imported from Europe, specifically Russia, and the international travel for that breed of kitten is pretty big. The main reason is because breeders in the United States are unwilling to sell their kittens to breeders that they don't know or new breeders. So it's quite easy to go to Europe and go to Russia and find a breeder who will sell you a kitten for breeding, and then you have to work the details out of getting the kitten here. And sometimes that means using cargo, and sometimes it means a flight nanny. It just all depends on what connections the breeder has and how much research you're willing to do. If you're looking for international travel nannies, there's a couple of Facebook groups that you can post in there when you're looking for someone, and you'll get responses. So I'm going to post those in the show notes as well if you need some resources for international travel nannies. Now, if you're using cargo and you're doing international travel with a kitten, then you do have to go through customs. And that can be broken down into a couple of different methods on how they do that. But if you're using a travel nanny, let's say, for example, and they have your kitten, usually the travel nanny will handle all of customs for you. You do not have to worry about doing any paperwork or declaring any kitten coming into the country if you're using a travel nanny. However, if the kitten is flying cargo, you have two options with that. One, you can hire a broker to handle the customs process for you. And that usually costs a couple of $100s. It depends on where you're located. And the broker will do all of the paperwork, get the kitten cleared through customs, and then you can pick the kitten up from the airline. Or you can do cargo yourself. Now, some states will actually require brokers, and you will not be able to go through customs yourself. I'm not sure what states they are. So if you want to, leave a comment on the website, catbreedersensei.com, on this particular blog post that's going to be called Transporting Your Kittens. Let me know what state you live in, and if you do indeed have to use a broker when you're picking up a kitten from international travel. So I've gone through customs several times. I know that they have a rule for using a broker in Florida, and it's if you paid over a certain amount for your kitten, then you have to use a broker. If not, you can do it yourself. And that process typically means going to the airline office. And the first time I picked up a kitten that was flying cargo, I'm like going to the airport, like I'm meeting a person. I had no idea that, I was going to a completely different location than the airport. It's near the airport, but it's not the airport. That's not where you pick kittens up from international travel that are flying through cargo. So I actually went to the airline's office. It's kind of an industrial area, and a couple of steps to this process. First is going into the office, getting the paperwork that you need, paying their fee, and then you take your paperwork to the customs office, which is in a different location. You get your paperwork and your kitten cleared through customs. You don't have your kitten with you. They're basically clearing the paperwork. They stamp it. They charge you a fee, and then you go back to the airline office to pick up your kitten, and then you have to wait for them to go find it, and it's usually sitting in the big warehouse thing in its carrier, and it's clearly marked with the paperwork. It just takes a little bit of time to get through that process. So if you want things to be done ahead of time, you can hire a broker to make sure that when you arrive, everything has been done and it's all ready for you. They handle all the paperwork ahead of time. So those are the different options for transporting your kittens to the new buyers. Lots of options that you have here. And like I said, I will leave resources for travel nannies, both domestic and international, in the show notes. and then some Facebook page resources for finding international travel nannies. You can also ask the breeder, like if you're getting a breeder from another country, they usually have some knowledge and some experience on how to get the kitten to you. So don't be afraid to ask them either. They're usually very helpful on, helping you transport the kitten. That's actually, more so if you're importing and you're trying to get the kitten to you. Some of the other options we were talking about is you getting one of your kittens to your buyer. So that's where we're talking about picking up at your cattery, meeting halfway, meeting at your airport, travel nanny drive, and travel nanny fly. So for those who were unfamiliar with how you're going to get your kittens out of your local area to the new homes, now you have some solutions, and hopefully that will help you make some decisions. I have all of these options on my website so that people say, hey, what do you charge for transport? I just have a customary menu, and they can decide ahead of time if they want to make the investment in transport, either through driving or through flying or a travel nanny, ahead of time, so they're not surprised later to find out the cost of transporting their new kitten. So happy travels to your babies on their way to their new homes. And you guys make good choices out there. And do me a favor and subscribe to the podcast on the platform that you listen to this on. That would be so awesome. And if you will, please be kind and leave me a positive review about the podcast as well. I get a lot of personal messages that people love the podcast, and I would really, really, really love it if you would just leave that review on the platform of your choice. That would be so awesome. Okay, and until the next episode, I'll be seeing you guys later. Bye.